Hey there, Kelly O'Connell of Knockout Podcasts. How you doing? Glad you're joining me here. Got an interesting topic for you today, and it has to do with why Joe Biden lies. And I think almost everybody would admit he lied, even some of my friends that are super partisan. But first, there is a lot of flooding and storms, and you had Ida come up and just completely trash New Orleans in the area, and it got all the way up to New York, and there was flooding that happened there from Ida, the hurricane, tropical storm. And I saw videos of water not just coming downstairs, but coming down directly onto subways. Like there was a waterfall up above it, and one story even said that there was, and this is in Rhode Island, there was a road that was damaged by it. You wouldn't believe it. It looked like that somebody had come in and just taken one of these giant machines, these road working machines, and just started smashing it up. And you looked at it and realized that they probably didn't have in mind this kind of water. There was another story, a bus in New York City got hit really hard. People said they were up to their necks inside the bus with water, and you have to wonder why they couldn't open the window or the door. But anyway, lots going on, and there's been flooding in this area, off and on flooding in New Mexico, in Arizona, in Nevada, Colorado, Texas, and there was really bad flooding in Kentucky too. So we're just getting it worked over, and I hope you're staying safe and dry. All right, let's get into this story, which I'm going to publish in Canada Free Press tomorrow. It's about Biden's lying. Biden's lies, why Joe collapsed into a sea of dishonesty. And so, it was around the time that the Afghanistan shutdown started, a week or two before, that Joe started saying a lot of stuff that people found suspicious or wrong. And one of the things was that he had to leave on a certain date because Trump had made some sort of a deal, and it turned out that neither the United States nor the Taliban had followed the details of this agreement, and so Joe was not under it anymore. But then we realized that he just wanted to. Now, here's one of the things that I think is going on this. I think that Joe is old and he's used up. You can see it in the way he walks, in the way he talks, in the way that he reacts to things. He's almost 80, but he's got some sort of cognitive decline going. And I think part of that had to do with his decision not to stay until all the Americans were there. But other parts of it, I don't understand. Some people are criticizing you don't leave before you get all your people out. Well, here's the crazy thing. You've got the world's greatest military, the greatest military in history, and we've got a rebel force that, admittedly we've given a lot of weapons to, but we're still much more powerful than they are. You could stay there as long as you wanted because you had control of the country, and instead he just leaves. And there are thousands of Americans there, and there's even a group of girls, a Christian girls' school, and they had their passports, and they were brought to Kabul airport, and they got through the Taliban, and when they got to the other checkpoint with the Americans, they were blocked from getting on a plane that they had for these girls. And so that was crazy, and you kind of wonder, aren't these the kind of girls that these Taliban boys would love to just kidnap and rape and pass around? And so, there's a lot of people over there suffering. There's people that are going house to house and killing people, but there's so much of it is totally predictable as to what Biden decided to do. So the question is, why did he have to do it? And I guess we'll never know that. Now, what I'm tackling today is the lies, but for a person to have control over the safety and welfare and safe passage of a group of people that he's basically related to, he's the president of these people, and to not go out of his way to save them as if they were a burden is just crazy. I'll never understand, I'll never listen to anything he says again with any interest, because what he did is so wrong and it's hurt so many innocent people. So, why does Joe lie? Joe Biden, fountain of lies. And watching Biden mislead America on his Afghanistan departure, each subsequent hour and news conference brought more questions, which then gave birth to more bold lies. Why is that? Now, following are some brief suggestions as to what possibly may be going on in his brain, and I don't claim to know. This is a science. have studied it a little bit on my own. But don't forget the most important source of potential misstatements could be dementia, which many people, including his good friend, ex-Senator Joe Lieberman, had mentioned that Biden is obviously suffering from diminished capacity, but that doesn't really tell the whole story of why does Joe lie. All right, my first belief, based on observing this guy for a long time, Joe lies because it's in his natural character. Now, the way I see it, every single day that he's around, he's getting a little bit less capable of thinking, of speaking, of interpreting, and so he goes further into cognitive decline, brain decline. Now, he's always been stingy with the truth, but as his mind devolves, crusty old Joe's habits increasingly direct his decisions, but with less self-awareness while delivering them. So he's had a lifelong habit, is a pathological liar, like a lot of politicians are, right? I mean, I'm not saying anything outrageous in terms of talking about politicians, but he's self-aware less and less, so that as he is trying to answer questions, he comes up with what would sound to him like plausible answers, but they don't sound like it to anybody else. Like saying the reason he did what he did is we had to get out of Afghanistan. And even Ann Coulter, who I've lost all respect for, agreed with that. But it's important to be married, have kids, right? But it's also important that you don't kidnap your wife and force her to marry you and rape her to have kids, which I don't mean to be redundant, but that's the Taliban for you. So Joe becomes a parody of a lying politician, but no longer feels whether his untruths seem honest or even plausible. So he's lost the feel. He's lost the feel for how he comes across, because his brain isn't working like it's supposed to. All right, now, so one of the keys here, based on what I just said, is confabulation, which I'm also calling natural lies, because in confabulation, it's a reaction of the body to cover up a lack of information. And it's defined here as spontaneous production of false memories, either memories of events that never occurred or memories of actual events which are displaced in space or time. Now think about that. It really does apply to Joe, what he's doing now on these press conferences. Now, more of a quote, these false memories can range from elaborate and bizarre, such as a memory of being a captain on an alien spaceship. And most known cases of confabulation are symptomatic of brain damage or dementias, such as aneurysm, Alzheimer's disease, etc. So Joe might not know he's lying, but you got to take a fallback here and say, as a chronic and compulsive liar, it doesn't really matter, since he'd be lying anyway, but it would be more effective lying. Let's put it that way. All right. So you've got a guy with very small standards when it comes to communication. and he is misleading people his whole life, and then as he gets older, his abilities, his talents or his skills diminish. So his body just clicks into this confabulation, and he doesn't fight it because it's really who he is. Now let's talk elitism. Biden's ideology, like all of these guys in the Democratic Party, is socialist, Marxist, and it's a belief system that overflows with self-aggrandizement. In other words, it's very high on itself. It believes it has all the answers. It's the truth. It's kind of a secular Bible, Marxism. And so Marxists believe they have a right and even a duty to lie. And the reason they believe this is because all of the people that they're dealing with are lost. And don't you pick this up from Pelosi and from some of these other people that are so far to the left, that they think that they're good people inside, and therefore they can do anything they want because they're fighting. Pelosi's in her 80s. She's still in office because she's fighting to save the world, save the universe, save America. So, and she can do anything she wants as a result of that. And this is a type of Gnosticism which believes that it's not faith in God or Jesus or anything like that saves somebody. It's the idea that you become educated and wise and enlightened, which brings you salvation. So there's no God in Gnosticism, even though you may have heard of the Gnostic Gospels. And the purpose of Gnosticism is to save people through humanism, through great works, through education and educating other people. And one of the interesting things is it's not inconsistent with Gnosticism, which goes back to the 2nd or 3rd century of the Middle East, and was actually a lot of people living in the desert thinking they were Christians, but seeing it with kind of Eastern religious set of glasses, But the elites, they think they're saving people, and therefore they have a right to manipulate and lie. They have a right to go through the legal system, and they have every right to misuse media, music, education system, politics to force people or basically brainwash people into believing the truth. So elites like Joe, and that's all elitism too. They're the tiny group at the top. Elites like Joe secretly believe they understand the, quote, real nature of the universe, while average souls are blundering dunderheads. And dunderhead is kind of an old, you look it up here for you. Just kind of a dummy. Dunderhead, a stupid person. So, socialists are missionaries preaching to the ignorant and blind. That's us. But must use dishonesty, since non-elites, the masses, the ignorant masses, fight against the truth like a gaffed barracuda. So they have a right and a duty to lie to us, so they're lying to us constantly. And the larger lie, the premier, the grade A, the most profound truth covers all the lies, because the lies are done for a good reason. But this also explains why leftists always sneer and laugh at non-believers. You know how Nancy Pelosi scoffed at Donald Trump and clapped behind him like a seal, and then took his speech and symbolically tore it behind him. Just a fool, All right, so beyond elitism, you have postmodernism, which you can kind of put together if you want, but the most influential philosophy today is postmodernism, where a typical postmodernist conclusion is that the universal truths, say like the Ten Commandments, are impossible, so relativism is our fate. So you can't say that there's universal truths, except if you're a Marxist, you can talk about all kinds of truths that are non universal truths. So Joe himself has never believed in the truth, I don't think, and neither does his staff. Further, and that's why they're so terrible, further, Marxists believe there is no human nature, that we are here by luck and evolution, there is no God to intervene, and there are no grand narratives to guide us, like I was just pointing out. So if Joe believes there is no truth, then why not constantly lie, since life is about gathering power anyway? If there is no such thing as a lie, then it's just difference of opinion. So you see how confused he is. Now, I can't be sure about all of this, but I believe to a great extent this explains who Joe Biden is. Now, Joe, the great man, he's been talking at the podium about what the great things that he's done, and it seems like he believes that he's a great man. Or, as Tom Wolfe talked about, a man in full. Tom Wolfe, the great writer. This is a humanist saving humanity by secretly living as a grasping opportunist and deluded bamboozler. I put that in there as a joke in parentheses. Or so it would seem, listening to the insane blather emanating from his deranged news conferences. Here, Joe simultaneously claims gravity has been reversed. There's no such thing as cause and effect. Truth is only perception, and that the Americans trapped behind enemy lines, quote, really wanted to stay anyway. You remember he said he called 19 times, called everybody 19 times, and that there was a significant minority of people who didn't want to leave. Now, that's like a Jewish person saying that I want to stay in Germany while Hitler's coming in to their neighborhood. It is easier to see oneself as a knight on white horse instead of a fatuous old windbag, a greedy and pathological liar who raised his son in his own image. That is, to be a beggar from great nations and a psychopathic con artist any day of the week and 7 ways from Sunday. So, Biden thinks he's a great man, and so how did he do that? He lost the thread. He forgot what truth is, what logic is. And now he's an old used up guy. He's just clutching to himself all of these falsehoods because he's done a terrible thing in Afghanistan, and he can't accept this idea. I mean, he might be nearly spent mentally, but he does understand he's at the end of his time, and there's no way to fix this anymore, which is strange that he didn't even try. Now, magical thinking. Serious Marxists like Biden fall into magical thinking, quote, the belief that one's ideas, thoughts, actions, words, or use of symbols can influence the course of events in the material world. Magical thinking presumes a causal link between one's interpersonal experience and the external physical world. So, you know, these Marxists have this very fatalistic view about life. They're very cynical, and I have found them to be very undereducated or uneducated. And so this magical thinking is related to mystical Marxism. This teaching, if rebels help assemble angry mobs, symbolic poor, a Marxist cadre or group, and a violent revolution, a utopian miracle will suddenly appear like a newborn unicorn under a perfect rainbow. So, all of these things I think are coming in and crowding out his mind, but I really believe that there is this impulse in these people to destroy the West, to destroy America, so because it's so evil and it's getting in the way of their plans. If they could just get all of the conservatives, all of the dummies, all of the unenlightened people out of the way, then they could save the world. And so I think there is something like that, a lot of that going on. Which is the most influential? I think the most influential is the dementia, because it takes away his mask. He doesn't pretend as much as he used to. And I think that just having a poor character and being an awful old liar to begin with, and then getting broken down psychologically and having all this pressure from the left, and he doesn't stand for anything. And I mean, you might want to think of yourself as a good guy, but if you don't do good things, I mean, if you leave thousands of your own people behind when you don't have to, knowing there's a good chance they could die. I mean, the question is, why did that have to happen? What drove him, even in his demented state, to want to do things that would obviously, by definition, destroy his reputation? So, and you can go through them right now. Letting the Taliban come back in and take over, number one. Number two, leaving on a predetermined schedule that gives the Taliban the advantage. Number three, that they would leave thousands of Americans behind. Number four, putting out these lists of people, biometric lists and flight manifest lists of people that we need to get out. So those are the people the Taliban saved. Taking out our military early before the civilians, closing down the Bagram Air Base, giving these people all of our weapons that were left over, including C-130 giant transport planes down to small bombers, and these black helicopters that are so deadly, and all of this weaponry, and they're wearing our uniforms, leaving them a bunch of money, and even refusing to take over to Kabul before we left so we could have complete control and this type of bottleneck wouldn't happen. And then, lying about it and then refusing to change his mind. There's not one of those things, and I'm sure that I left out some. There is not one. Oh, and leaving in the summer instead of the winter when they don't fight in the winter. There's not one of those things that he chose to do that had an upside on it, only a downside. So it's terrible. And Joe Biden is a terrible human being. He's evil. To the extent that his brain is working anymore. Anyway, call your congressman. I'm going to put out a call your congressman, how to locate your representative. I keep saying that, but all right. So some weird news now. And by the way, would you subscribe and would you give me a thumbs up on these videos? Very sad story here. They're not tragic, but sad. Ladies went into a store, left her two kids in the car. I think a crack addict, I saw her face, it looked all destroyed, ran up to the car in New Orleans and jumped in. Two boys jumped out. The bigger one got out, and then the little one jumped out and fell on the ground, and the woman took off and ran over his foot. When I saw him rubbing his foot, he could still walk, but he must not have been much older than 4 or 5. It was kind of tragic. But anyway, they called 911, and it took them 5 hours to get over there. Now, the caller, or the operator, was named Precious Stevens. She would hang up on 911 calls for help without taking information from callers or sending it to the emergency services, and now they're looking for her to charge her with malfeasance in office and interfering with an emergency communication. So I think that she should get a felony, obviously. But I was thinking about this. What if you were going to do a crime, you were going to do a big bank robbery of some kind, and you got your people in, you had some gang members and trained them and put them into, and they'd obviously have to work there for a while, but into a 911 center so that when the calls came in, that you blocked the calls so the police never heard about it. Just kind of an interesting premise for a book or a movie. All right, another one. Doctors figure out why woman was lactating from her armpit. She's from Portugal. And 2 days after giving birth, the woman told doctors her armpit was painful, and they looked at it. It was round and firm, a mass, which released a white discharge when pressed, and you would think it would be pus, but no. It was breast milk, folks. Mom was diagnosed with polymastia, a condition in which accessory breast tissue develops along the former embryonic mammary ridge. Researchers believe between 2 and 6% of women are born with additional breast tissue. And so, anyway, I don't think she was breastfeeding from her armpit, although I could be mistaken. Russian, and this is Sky News, July 20th. Russian traffic officer with golden toilet is arrested after police uncover massive bribery scheme. Police Colonel Alexei Safonov, accused of leading a criminal gang that accepted millions of rubles in bribes from cargo transporters. And so it was in the area of Stavropol, which I've never heard of course, but they showed pictures of his house, lavish rooms, extravagant decorations, billiards, even a golden toilet. So anyway, he's in a lot of trouble. I guess he thought he had hit the royal flush when he got the golden toilet. One more. Young North Koreans ordered to stop speaking, dressing, and dancing like South Koreans, or else. And Kim Jong-un is clamping down on these people that are not satisfied with being in their own country. And Pyongyang is trying to eradicate cultural influences from South Korea. They're particularly focused on the speaking habits of millennials, with some mimicking neighbors by referring to their husbands as Oppa. That means older brother, whatever the importance of that is. The article warned that the ideological and cultural penetrated under the colorful signboard of the bourgeoisie is even more dangerous than the enemies who are taking guns. So anyway, don't piss off Kim Jong-un. All right, I'll squeeze in one more here. This is from a lady in Georgia, Trisha Wilcher, and she described the horror of finding a snake and 17 babies under her bed after the reptile gave birth. And she was scared shirtless after seeing this in her home, and, quote, has a slight feeling that there may be more than one left, despite an expert coming in to ransack the house for baby snakes. And the woman has described the horror after discovering 18 snakes writhing under her bed as she was about to go to sleep. Wiltshire had to do a double take, noticing that what she initially thought was a piece of fuzz moving on the floor were little snakelings. And it's got a picture of them here, and they're pretty darn cute. Kind of fit into the decor of the carpet. She eventually found a mother snake and 17 babies after turning the bedroom upside down. And doesn't really say yet. Mrs. Wiltshire said, I might need a cardiologist. And she lived in Augusta. So it doesn't really say what kind of snakes they are. I'm disappointed. It would have been more interesting if they were rattlesnakes, don't you think? So anyway, the picture that they show kind of looks like a viper, but I'm not an expert on snakes. And okay, one last story for you here. And it's an Australian story, and a gentleman sat down to relieve himself on a toilet, and the 65-year-old man received for his efforts a snake bite from a reticulated python, and he felt a pinch in the area of his genitals before noticing a 5-foot, 1.6 meter snake beneath him in the toilet bowl at his home. And it is it's assumed that the route from that the snake took was from the neighbor's apartment. So the neighbor who owns 11 snakes has been reported to the prosecutor for causing negligent harm. Anyway, Kelly O'Connell, thanks for tuning in Knockout Radio, and we will get back to you tomorrow. Hope you have a great night. Hit my subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you soon. Ciao.